Welcome to Vlogmas Day 12. Today we're just gonna super chill, cozy up by the Christmas tree. We're wearing the Christmas vibes sweater. I've got a cherry Coke Zero to enjoy. Cheers. We're gonna hang out until I got a little bit before I go pick up Thomas from school. So today I wanted to talk about reading, basically. Some of my favorite reads of 2023, a big reading habit that I changed this year that I'm gonna like give you permission to do the same, the different ways in which I read books in 2023 and why I found it super good for my mental health. And I know reading isn't for everyone, but just like hang out, get a beverageino, relax. Maybe this will, you know, pique an interest, or you'll get an idea for a gift for someone at the very least. So for me at the beginning of 2023, as I shared in a vlog recently, one of my big goals was look into ways and behaviors and things that you can do to stop scrolling your phone. Like the mindless scrolling, I'm just finding more and more toxic. Even if it's reels and they're funny, like to me it's just like I'm not learning anything, I'm not gaining anything, I'm just like numbing out. And mindlessly scrolling is a form of numbing. And no judgment, like if that's what you want to do, if that's how you think it's good for your mental health, great. But for me, a big goal this year was like, what can I do so I'm not scrolling my phone? I started playing Animal Crossing on the Switch and I read a lot more. You know, if everyone's just like sitting in a room hanging out and everyone's on their phones, why can't you just be reading instead? Actually, I had company come this summer and there was lots of times where we all just hung out silently and read. It was so relaxing and so nice. For me, the first half of 2023 until the end of June, I was still in university. So I didn't read for pleasure, like an actual physical book really at all. I listen to audiobooks. That's how I find I can like read for pleasure. At least when I was, you know, reading so much for school, I could not bring myself to open another book. But listening to audiobooks I find wonderful. I like to listen to them while I cook, while I clean, while I get ready in the morning, in the car, while I like, you know, just kind of bop around the house. I'll have my AirPods in, and that's another way I find I can like read books is by listening to them. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Lots of people prefer to listen to a book than to read. To me, that's just the same. And I've talked about this before, but in case, you know, you haven't heard it, I use the Libby app, which in Canada, at least in BC, I think it's across the country, is the library app. So all you need to do is get a library card from your local library, and then you can borrow both like digital books and audiobooks. They also have infinite amount of magazines. Like if you have the Libby app, there's no reason why you should ever have to pay like $8 for a magazine. They have such a wide selection. So I primarily use that. I do also have an Audible account, but I save those credits. I would much rather borrow a book from Libby for free than use one of my Audible credits. And also this year, I really leaned into the Audible Plus catalog, which comes with your Audible subscription. And it's like hundreds of books for free. So I did listen to some of those and ended up enjoying some of those as well. I really like listening to books. So that is one way that I really leaned into reading this year. And as much as I love a physical book, I'm also someone who really believes in like tidy space, tidy mind. I don't have a ton of bookshelf space, and as much as I love to read a physical book, it's rare that I actually keep it once I've read it, because it's very rare that I'm gonna reread a book, especially if it's fiction. There's a few non-fictions that I will reread, but very minimal. So I end up just like donating them, giving them to a girlfriend, or putting them in our little like local free library down the street. So I got out of the habit of buying physical books, especially when on Mother's Day, my husband bought me a Kobo. If you're American, Kobo is the Canadian equivalent to a Kindle. You can totally have a Kindle in Canada. I actually have a super old one, but the thing about the Kindle in Canada is you cannot access the Libby app. So you can't borrow books from the library and read them on your Kindle for some reason. You can only do that on your Kobo. And being able to borrow books was like so appealing to me. There's lots of things that I love about it. I have the Kobo Clara 2E and it just looks like this. It just looks like this. This is the book I'm reading right now, which I showed you yesterday. And it's quite small, like this is the size of my hand, so I can comfortably hold it. The case that I have is from Indigo itself. I don't know what the brand is. It doesn't say, but I like it because it does this. You can see, so you can like put it on a counter and it sits up, or you can also like lay it down in bed as well to read it. I really like that. And for me, having a cover was like a non-negotiable. I had another case for mine and it got ruined. That day I went out and bought a new one. I love to take this with me everywhere. The Kobo Clara 2E is some of its specs that I love. For one is the size. Also, like this is, let me see, it's not blue light, so I love that. This is how it would look in daytime. It's kind of hard to show on camera, but like this is like daytime light, and I love that you can adjust the brightness fully and down to 0, and then at night you can have it in what's called natural light. Again, I don't think this is gonna like really show up on camera as a difference, but it's a much more like yellow hue. So, and I will often have it down to basically like, you know, 8% of brightness, especially at nighttime. So it's like much dimmer. And an interesting thing that I found now is like when I do have an actual paper book, because I did read a few physical books this year, ones that like either were cost comparative from the Kobo, or I couldn't get on Libby, or I already had, so I was wanting to read. I really notice now I am so spoiled and love the light factor. The fact that like no matter where I am, it has like a built-in light, so if it's dark or whatever, or in the evenings, you know, I always say low light's my best light. I love that about it. The battery lasts forever. Like I rarely have to charge it. What else do I like about it? So you can get books from the library. You can also like buy books from the Kobo store. And a top tip I have is putting books that you want to read in your like wish list, and then quite often they'll email you saying that they're discounted. Like most books I have purchased on Kobo are like $2.99, $3.99, and I rarely buy them. Yeah, so never did I ever think that I would be such a Kobo girly, but like he gave this to me for Mother's Day. It's top tier. In 2023, I took this everywhere. Vacation, I took it to the beach. It fits in my purse. I find I like to take it with me so that instead of mindlessly scrolling my phone, like sitting at the doctor or getting my oil changed, I'm not flipping through Instagram, I'm reading. And I'm not reading anything highbrow, as you're about to see, like nothing serious. It's all very light, but it's so much better for my mental health. So if you want to know anything else about this, let me know. And oh, another thing I was gonna say is I don't know how much it costs. Let me just Google it, because if you think I've read 100 books this year, Kobo Clara 2E, let's see how much it costs. It's $160 at Indigo. Right now it's actually $20 off, so it's $140. But say it's $160. Oh, it's also waterproof. I didn't mention that. amazing. So like I'll take it in the bath. I won't, you know, submerge it or whatever. And it's 6 inches, in case you were wondering. You can get it at Best Buy, Indigo. Anyway, $160. If you think I have read, say I've read 100 books this year and say the average price of a book is $20, that's $2 grand. Like easily, quickly, this thing paid for itself. So, and I actually know quite a few people who I raved about it enough because like I have not shut up about my Kobo, have gotten it themselves, and everyone raves about it. You might be thinking like, yes, I love a physical book, and totally that's great. And you might be thinking like, I'm on my computer, the last thing I want to do is look at a screen. It's not blue light, so it's definitely different. Like I can read in the middle of the night if I wake up and can't fall back to sleep, or at night and it's not the blue light. And again, like nothing against a regular book, nothing against actually going to the library and checking books out. It's just so convenient on your Kobo. I did thrift a few books this year, mostly for decor, which I'm really liking, like having little stacks of books throughout the house. But I did thrift a few that I have read as well. And like, I don't know, I'm kind of, and I'm in my reading era, as you can tell. Okay, so I'm not gonna rattle off every single book I read this year because like there's just no point. I keep a screenshot of every cover because I like to be able to, like if someone says like what's a good book, I can just quickly go back and see what I've read this year. I'll just do a few of my faves. Ones that maybe I haven't heard people talk about as much. This one is called The Vibrant Years and it's by Sonali Dev. One of the best books I read this year. This is a bit of the description. When 65-year-old Bindu Desai inherits $1 million, she's astounded and horrified. The windfall threatens to expose a shameful mistake from her youth. Desperate to keep the secret, Bindu quickly spends it on something unexpected, a condo in a posh retirement community in Florida. The impulsive decision blindsides Bindu's daughter-in-law, Ali. At 47, she still shares a home with her after her divorce from Bindu's son, but then the change may push Ali to, you know, make some change herself. Then we have Ali's daughter, Cully, who is faced with losing the business that made her a tech world star. And it's like, it says, join the 3 women on a shared journey of self-discovery as they dare to live their most vibrant lives. Just like very wholesome, but different than anything I've ever read. And I like reading books about like different cultures and people in different cultures to learn more about the food and the traditions and the familial ways in which they treat each other. It's very cool. I'm just gonna find write-ups about the books because it's easier to read what someone else has written about it than like me trying to verbal vomit all over you. The next one's called The Reading List and it is by Sarah Nisha Adams and it says, widower Mukesh lives a quiet life in Wembley in West London after losing his beloved wife. He shops every Wednesday, goes to temple, and worries about his granddaughter, who hides in her room reading while he spends his evening watching nature documentaries. Alicia is a bright but anxious teenager working at the local library for the summer when she discovers a crumpled up piece of paper in the back of a book. It's a list of novels that she's never heard of before. Intrigued and a little bored, she impulsively decides to read every book on it, one after the other. As each story gives up its magic, the books transport her from the painful reality she's facing at home. Then Mukesh comes to the library and she then passes along the reading list to him, and then they share a connection and like more people sort of get involved as well. Again, like wholesome, lovely story. A very, you know, simple, easy read. You're not getting anything about like murder or true crime from this girly. Absolutely not. The next one's called The Most Likely Club by Alyssa Freeland. And it says, an overview is, a hilarious, heartfelt story about 4 lifelong friends determined to change their lives come hell or high water. So these 4 women were friends in high school, then they come back to their high school reunion 25 years later. Shocker, nothing has gone to plan. And so they find ways to like live out their childhood dreams and improve their lives. And it also talks about like why it's never a good idea to peak too early in life. As you can tell, I really like coming of age, improving your life, you're never too old kind of vibes this year. One author that I was really into, and I'm just gonna list off the books that I read of hers this year, was Sophie Kinsella. I've Got Your Number, Can You Keep a Secret, The Undomestic Goddess, Love Your Life, Remember Me, and Finding Audrey. All very like easy to read. Again, like nothing too serious is happening. They're all set in England, which the Brit in me just loves. Like I love the accents and I love learning more about the culture and what happens in those communities. So if you're like just looking on Libby for an author to search for easy reads, Sophie Kinsella is a great one. Of those, my favorite was probably The Undomestic Goddess. The next one is definitely one of the tops of the year for me. It's called Someone Else's Shoes by Jojo Moyes. And I've never read anything else by her, but this one was so fun. It says, Nisha Cantor lives the globe-trotting life of a seriously wealthy woman until her husband announces a divorce and cuts her off. She's determined to hang on to her glamorous life, but in the meantime, she must scramble to cope. And then another woman, Sam Kemp, who's in the bleakest point of her life, has actually taken Nisha's gym bag, which includes her shoes. And it says, when Sam tries on Nisha's 6-inch Christian Louboutin red crocodile shoes, the resulting jolt of confidence makes her realize that something must change, and that thing is herself. It's a fun, like, campy romp, again in England, which I just really loved. Yeah, these all have like a very similar through line to them, don't they? Like someone who's not doing so great, then something fun happens, then they like rise to the occasion. This was not on purpose. It's just in like reviewing these that I'm realizing that's kind of the book that I enjoy. All right, we just ran out of memory card, but we're back. Okay, I'm just gonna rattle off a few others that were good. I read the Inheritance Games trilogy, which is technically YA, but I loved it. 10 out of 10 recommend it. It's about this girl who's in high school and she gets named in like a billionaire's will and she doesn't know him, so it's like figuring out why she is like listed in the inheritance, and then it's like the Inheritance Games, and there's a bunch of like games and clues and puzzles and stuff that she has to figure out. I also started reading ACOTAR this year, that series, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses, and it's by Sarah J. Maas. I read A Court of Thorn and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, and I'm about halfway through Wings and Ruin, and then I paused because it's so good that like I wanted to take a break from it. I don't want it to like end too quickly. It's very different than any of the books that I've mentioned. It's fantasy and it's like world building in the Fae world. I think that's what you would call it. Again, it's YA, but is it YA? I think it is considered that. I don't know if I would consider it that, but it was fun to sort of like branch out of my normal kinds of books that I read, like genres. I read some more like mystery kind of thriller, like one by Tarryn Fisher, The Wrong Family, which I didn't like. I read the much hyped Lisa Jewell's None of This Is True. Also, I have no idea what happened in that book. No. The Favorite Sister, that was another like one that was a mystery thriller. I didn't even finish that one. Okay, since we're sort of getting to this topic, this was the first year that I did not finish books without like shame or judgment or anything. Like DNF did not finish a lot of them. And I just realized there's millions of books, so why am I forcing myself to finish something that I'm not enjoying? Especially if I'm like halfway through and like nothing's happened, or I don't like any of the characters. I did that for a few, and honestly, it's kind of weird to get used to because for some reason I am so conditioned to finish things, but like, if I'm not enjoying it, I'm not gonna pick up my Kobo, and there's a zillion other books that I could be enjoying. So that one was bad. The much hyped this year Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I don't know what the hype was. That book made me so uncomfortable. I didn't like it at all. Ooh, one that was like mystery thriller I really did enjoy was Ruth Ware's The It Girl. It starts out a bit sinister, you think, because it starts out with like a murder on a university campus, but then it goes like backtracks what happened, but then it also jumps ahead like 10 years in the future again, and there's no like violence or anything like that in it, which I appreciate. Actually, any of the books that I've mentioned so far, I would definitely give you a trigger warning. I read the Britney Spears book. I loved it. I don't know how her family's not in prison. And also, like, justice for her, whatever she wants to do on Instagram, in her life, with her money, she's allowed to do whatever she wants, because like the therapist in me and also just the human being in me was like so disgusted by the way in which she was treated that I just, wow, I feel for her. The last book I'm going to mention, definitely trigger warning, is the one that I was mentioning last night that I said I'm only about 50% of the way through. It's A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I'm sure I just butchered that. It's a National Book Award finalist, and as you can see, the cover is like, it would have put me off for a very long time, but like trigger warnings in this one would be violence, abuse, suicidal ideations, self-harm. I honestly wish that every book at the beginning would have the trigger warnings. Like, maybe we can get to that point, you know? But in saying all that, it's again like super out of my genre. As you can tell, she likes a girly book, but it is so powerful. It's one of the best books I've read in a really long time. Again, I'm only 50% of the way through, but it's the story of these four men who I believe meet in college, and then it details their friendship throughout the years that come. And one of them, who like Little Life, I think is sort of talking about, comes from the most horrific abusive past, and you start to learn more about it as the book progresses. And it's told from, it's a multi, what would you call that? Multi-perspective, multi-voice book. So, you know, there's different sections of the book that are told from different people's perspectives. And I don't know, there's just something about this book that's hit me differently. It's the story of like vulnerable male friendship, and also I think something that really hits me is like these men are so loving and gentle and kind to their friend who has many disabilities, like physically. I think that's part of what like really touched me. It's a big one. Like I said, I think it's like 2,400 pages on my Kobo, and it's one that came up in a skip the line book on Libby. Sometimes they'll have these loans, but they're only for 7 days, so you can skip the line on a really popular book, because this is a very popular book. But then you can't renew it, and you only have 7 days to read it. So I only got like not even a quarter of the way through. I ended up buying it on my Kobo, and now I'm slowly going through it and pausing for some like Christmas uplifting ones. But yeah, if you're not someone who likes the girly reads, like the coming of age, that sort of book that I've been talking about, or you're looking for something different, it's really touched me. Yeah. So those are the books. Whoa, I've not been out of focus this whole time, right? I best not have been out of focus this whole time. So those are just some of the books that I read this year. I would love to know, what did you read this year? And like, have you read any of these? Are you someone that doesn't finish a book? Like, why do we feel like we have to finish it? It's like, it's gonna get better, but is it? And also at some point, is it going to? Like, there was a few this year that I did finish, and I was like, what is all the fuss about with this one? Like I would love to hear what you read. Just books in general. Like I love to read, as you can tell. And I guess like one sort of, instead of check the time, I'm not late picking up my son from school because I'm prattling on about books. Like don't feel like you have to read deep, heavy, meaningful things. Honestly, as you can tell, I am reading to replace mindless scrolling. I'm not reading to like learn anything. Obviously, maybe you will be, but I learned a lot in school and I'm happy to take a break. And I'm also continuing to take like some online courses and things to learn more techniques for work. But like when I want to read fluffy. I want it to not be like super terrible. I'm not into the really like smut stuff. And if you are, great. Like if you're into horror, you're into smut, you're into like science fiction, you're into romance, like historical fiction, whatever it is. It's just good to read. Honestly, I actually find that it improves my vocabulary and I find it very relaxing. And I'm gonna pack this in my purse right now as I go to pick up Thomas from school. I often read it in the school pickup line. Anywho's, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Lace up, subscribe, become a marathoner. Life's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Hopefully you're enjoying Vlogmas-ish. We're 12 days into it. Again, I'm not sure how long we're gonna continue, but we're here today. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Me and my Santa vibes. Hope you're doing well.